and the Underworld, Chapter 1. Have you ever experienced one of those days? A dreary, chilly day with nothing eventful happening. This was the type of day Ellie McKay was having as she walked home from school in the rain, thinking of happier times. Her boots squelched through the puddles as the rain soaked her clothes, and she couldn't wait to be home in the warmth. As she approached the end of the lane in Stony Brook Village, her spirits lifted a little as she caught sight of the cottage she shared with her dad. Ellie quickened her pace, eager to escape inside. As she entered the property, she made herself a mug of hot chocolate, kicked off her shoes, and flopped onto the red velour couch. Letting out an enormous sigh of relief, she was grateful to be back in her cosy home. She hugged the cushion for comfort, imagining the faint scent of her mum's perfume. At 15 years old, she struggled with depression, and the memories of her mum only intensified those feelings. Ellie longed for an adventure to break the monotony of her bleak reality. She yawned, feeling the weight of tiredness settling in. Sitting on the couch, she listened to the icy rain on the window. Her hands wrapped around the mug of hot chocolate, instantly warming her fingertips. After finishing her drink, she snuggled up and waited for her dad to come home from work. She closed her eyes to let sleep take over her tired body. However, her plan was abruptly interrupted when a piece of ice hit the window. Bang! Another chunk of ice hit the window, which caused Ellie to jump up and see an orb the size of a watermelon hovering outside, pushing its way through the glass. Ellie's heart raced as she watched the orb glow within an orange flame as it pushed through the window and hovered in the air. Rooted to the spot, she struggled to comprehend what had just happened. The pulsating orb observed her, as if it had a mind of its own. She rubbed her eyes and pinched herself, questioning whether she was hallucinating, but the orb remained, defying the laws of gravity and logic. She took a step closer to the orb, and it moved in response, its flame dancing in a hypnotic rhythm. Ellie was both terrified and mesmerised, wondering what had just presented itself. A loud noise generated from the orb, causing Ellie's ears to ring. She watched in horror as the orb shattered into several icy shards. Quickly, she dropped to the ground and curled up in a ball to avoid being hit by any of the flying fragments. When she opened her eyes, the orb was gone and a young man appeared in its place. He stood tall, brushing off his vibrant yellow suit. The purple chiffon cravat and shiny white shoes complemented his outfit. Ellie couldn't help but think he looked dressed to impress. She gaped at him in disbelief, wondering if she was dreaming. What just happened? Ellie stammered, trying to make sense of it. The young man grinned, clearly pleased with himself. Wow, that worked, he exclaimed. That is the first time I've changed solid atoms in glass to a non-frozen state. I worked on how to quickly change the molecular structure of amorphous solids like glass, and it allowed me to polymorph through your window. Ellie found it hard to understand what the young man was saying, but was also distracted by the window's peculiar behaviour. The bulge in the glass she noticed earlier had slowly reduced in size until it had vanished completely, as if nothing had occurred. I suppose I could have entered your home conventionally, but where would be the fun in that? Ellie still couldn't make sense of his words and found herself staring at him in confusion. Who are you? Hello, Octavian is the name. Nice to be in your company. The young man extended his hand towards Ellie, and after hesitating, she eventually returned the gesture. Her eyes widened in shock as she felt a strange suction feeling. When she pulled her hand away, she realised he wasn't entirely human. Ellie observed that the young Octavian possessed an unusually large head with enormous dark eyes. His complexion was grey with a bluish hue, and he was a frail figure standing over 6 feet tall. Shocked, she struggled to speak and kept a safe distance from him, her voice trembling. What are you, and how did you get in here? Ellie asked, trying to understand how Octavian had managed to get through the window. I'm sorry if I sound rude, but it doesn't make any sense. How is that even possible? Octavian spoke slowly and gently. I understand. It must be a lot to take in, he acknowledged. I use quantum transportation to move through the window, and I was sent to you by an organisation called the Underworld to act as your guardian." Ellie still couldn't believe what she was hearing and scowled at Octavian in disbelief. "Why do I need a guardian? I have my dad to look after me," she added, feeling defensive. Octavian looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You should sit down. You've gone pale and you look like you've seen a ghost." Octavian's words brought her back to the present moment. "You're right, I feel a little bit lightheaded," Ellie admitted and sat down on the couch, trying to take it all in. Octavian rummaged in his pocket and pulled out a shiny amulet. It was hung on a silver chain, and he held it towards her. "Your mother left this in the underworld with instructions for it to be delivered to you when the time was right." Ellie's eyes narrowed, and a spark of anger flashed in them. 6 years had passed since her mum had died, and the grief still weighed heavily on her. She had so many questions she needed to ask. "How did you find me?" Octavian hesitated and shuffled around. "The underworld has its ways," he said critically, "but that's not important for now. Your safety is." Ellie shook her head in disbelief. "This is insane," she muttered. "How can you expect me to believe all this? Your mum was an amazing woman with extraordinary powers. You will learn this in time. My instructions are to give you the amulet, for you to never take it off." Ellie listened, her mind racing about what her mum's powers were and the nature of the underworld's agenda. She stood with her shoulders hunched, wanting to move away as Octavian moved behind her and secured the amulet around her neck. He fumbled clumsily to close the clasp with his tentacle-like fingers. Ellie shuddered at his touch. His hands were icy cold. "Thank you." Although still panic-stricken, she didn't feel as fearful of Octavian as when he had first appeared. She examined the amulet. It was silver, oval shape with a grave marbled stone in the centre, and she noted an inscription engraved around it that read, "Abracadabra." Ellie couldn't help but laugh, which caused Octavian to look confused. "Is this amusing?" he asked. She apologised for her laughter. "Is it meant to protect me?" she inquired. "I'm just used to hearing abracadabra at birthday parties when magicians pull rabbits out of hats." Octavian acknowledged her amusement with a chuckle before replying, "That old chestnut. I understand, but don't underestimate the power of the word abracadabra. It has an ancient magical meaning. Wearing the amulet can keep you safe, ward off evil, and even help you create magic if you need it." Her mind swirled with confusion. It was as if she had been transported into a fantasy world. She watched as Octavian started to perspire. "I feel faint," he expressed, wiping his forehead. "It's very warm in here. It's not good for me. I could lose too much salt and become unwell." Ellie observed droplets of sweat trickling down his larger-than-average forehead. "Please could I have a glass of water with a teaspoon of salt in it? I need to drink or I will dehydrate. I know this sounds odd, and I would never recommend drinking salt water as it could make you very sick, but my circumstances are very unique," Octavian pleaded. Ellie quickly assessed the situation and rushed to the kitchen to get a glass of salt water. What if Octavian died? How would she explain his death to her dad, and anyone for that matter? She filled the glass with water, added the salt, and rushed back to him. As soon as Octavian drank the salt water, he visibly improved. "It's time for me to go. Your dad will be back soon. I can't risk bumping into him just yet," Octavian declared. Ellie nodded, feeling relieved that he was leaving. "I agree," she said. "This isn't an ideal situation for my dad to come home to." "Can you meet me at the old oak tree next to the church at 1 in the afternoon tomorrow?" Octavian asked. The oak tree was Ellie's favourite spot. She often sought solace under its branches after school. Being close to nature and feeling the earth beneath her feet always helped ground her. Ellie didn't trust Octavian and was aware of the danger of meeting strangers. She also didn't like lying to her dad. She pondered what to do and then had an idea. "I could leave a note for my dad telling him I've gone out with my friends from school. I understand your concern, Ellie, and I don't wish to cause you any harm." She remembered her dad had installed a tracker and safety alarm on her phone after her mum's death. If anything were to happen, her dad would be able to locate her. "Yes, I'll come and meet you," Ellie answered. "This is wonderful news." I will leave by the back door this time. Much easier than turning back into an orb. Farewell, and see you tomorrow. And no sooner than he appeared in her front room, the strange Octavian now departed. Helen still wasn't sure if the last hour had been a dream or reality, but the empty glass with the salt residue was proof of what had happened. Exhausted, she slumped back down on the couch. The amulets around her neck pulsated and glowed purple. She was sure it had been a silver colour earlier. Ellie didn't have time to dwell on the situation as her dad would be home soon. It was a Friday and her dad spent the entire day working on the farm with Grandpa Joe. He was due back around 5 o'clock. Ellie had always preferred to be there when he came home from work. It helped to lessen the silence in the house since that dreadful day. As soon as Bill got home, he entered the front room to greet her. "Oh, it's been a tough day at work today," he grumbled. "I've been chasing after sheep. Some kids camping left the gate open again." Bill was a sturdy man with a ruddy complexion and tousled dark hair. Some would call him a handsome man, but that was of no concern to him. He still loved his wife. Ellie couldn't help but notice the sweat on his forehead and the exhaustion in his eyes. She placed a cup of steaming tea in front of him and offered a warm smile, feeling relieved that her dad was too preoccupied to see her flustered state. She knew that her dad had been working at Pear Tree Farm since he was 20 years old. Now, 2 decades later, he still assisted Grandpa Joe, who at 66 required all the help he could get. During the week, he worked part-time as an accountant for a multinational electric company, earning a decent enough salary to pay the bills. As a widowed parent, he needed a good income. Ellie knew her dad loved the farm and the accounting job was merely a means to an end. She watched as her dad smiled at her. "So how was your day, Ellie?" She brushed her long dark hair over her shoulder and forced a smile. She'd always been self-conscious about her appearance, despite her pretty freckles and pretty features and petite lips and blue eyes that sparkled against her pale complexion. Ellie's cheeks flushed, knowing she was about to lie to her dad. She'd never felt comfortable lying, but today she had no choice. Ellie fidgeted with her fingers as she spoke, trying to keep her voice steady. "The same old thing, nothing eventful." She placed the amulet on the table. "But I did find something interesting by the oak tree." "It is an amulet. It was buried in the soil. I cleaned it up and it looks new." Ellie observed a shift in her dad's demeanour and tone as he glanced at the amulet. "Where did you say you found it? It looks familiar," he asked, appearing on edge. Ellie's stomach churned with guilt. "I found it by the oak tree," she responded, her voice becoming more hesitant. "You need to be careful picking up things that are not yours. You don't know who it belonged to or who might come looking for it," Bill cautioned as he pushed his plate aside. Ellie sensed her dad's unease and inquired, "Are you all right?" "No, I'm not. I'm going to bed. I don't appear to have too much of an appetite. It's been a tough day with all the sheep running me ragged. We'll talk tomorrow. Love you." Ellie watched as her dad walked up the stairs, his body slumping heavily. "Love you too," she called after him. She felt concerned as her dad was usually in good spirits despite their struggles, but tonight something was different. Ellie suspected he was troubled by more than just fatigue. He looked anxious, as if the weight of the world was on his shoulders. She made her way to bed and hoped a good sleep would help. The early morning crow of the cockerel awoke Ellie, and she groaned to try to go back to sleep, covering her head with a pillow. A few moments later, she heard the front door shut. This was unusual, because her dad always said goodbye before leaving. Getting out of bed, she peered out of the window to catch a glimpse of him driving down the lane. Anxiety fluttered inside of her. Something was wrong. Ellie had planned to meet Octavian at 1 o'clock, but she was still uncertain whether yesterday's encounter with him had been real or just a dream. The amulet hanging around her neck suddenly pulsed, confirming the events of yesterday. Setting her plans in motion for the day, she took a shower and had breakfast. With a satisfied stomach, Ellie made her way to her bedroom to get dressed. She opted for her favourite pink jumper, a pair of well-worn jeans, comfortable walking boots. As she looked out of the window, she observed the remains of some frost on the ground, but took note of the clear blue sky and decided against bringing a coat. The weather was perfect for a meeting with Octavian. Ellie took a deep breath, trying to steady herself as she walked towards the church in the distance. Each step took her further away from the safety, and her nerves were frayed. Her heart pounded in her chest as she listened to the rustle of the leaves and the chirping of the birds, each sound growing louder with every passing moment. She couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. Despite it all, she kept moving forward, determined to meet Octavian, no matter what. Ellie's eyes darted around the area, hoping to catch a glimpse of him, but he was nowhere to be seen. A wave of uncertainty washed over her, making her question her sanity. She approached the old oak tree and leaned against its knobbly trunk, seeking solace in its familiar presence. Little did she know that her life was about to take a drastic turn. The beautiful blue sky that had been present quickly turned black as thunder boomed from the air. Ellie's body jolted in fright. She looked up and saw the lightning bolt striking the ground, illuminating everything with a blinding light. Despite knowing that hiding under the old tree during a storm was risky, she had nowhere else to go. Ellie weighed her options carefully, but another deafening boom of thunder shook the ground, pushing her to make a quick decision. With her heart racing, she decided to run to the nearby church for shelter. However, before she could even move, a bolt of lightning struck the tree with intense force. The impact threw Ellie backwards, causing her to hit her head on the ground. Her vision was momentarily blurred, and she felt disorientated. As Ellie regained her senses, she realised something had changed. She wasn't outside anymore. Looking around, she found herself in a dark, hollow cylinder with a floor beneath her. The place was unfamiliar, and panic started to rise within her. She could feel her heart beating faster and faster. She stifled a scream and realised she was trapped inside the trunk of the old oak tree. Ellie began to explore the inside of the tree trunk. Her fingers brushed against its rough surface until she felt a switch. Without hesitation, she flipped it up, and a soft glow illuminated the space, revealing a toboggan with steps leading down to it. She paused for a moment, unsure of what to do next, but curiosity got the better of her, and she climbed inside the toboggan. The seat was positioned vertically with the downward slope beckoning her towards the unknown. As she settled into the seat, she spotted a button marked Exit. Not taking any chances, she pulled the harness over herself and it clicked into place like a roller coaster restraint. Taking a deep breath, Ellie pressed the red exit button and the toboggan sprang to life. The sudden flash of lights and blaring siren caught her off guard as she hurtled down the tree at breakneck speed. Her heart pounded in her chest as she clutched the harness, grateful for its secure hold. After what felt like an eternity, the toboggan came to an abrupt stop, leaving Ellie breathless and shaken. Taking a moment to collect herself, she unhooked the harness and stepped out of the toboggan. Looking around, Ellie took in her new surroundings, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. She heard a voice behind her and turned to see Octavian, a wide smile on his face. "Greetings, Miss Ellie. Did you enjoy your journey?" he asked, placing his arm around her shoulder. She couldn't help but feel relieved to see a familiar face, especially after the harrowing ride. "It was dramatic and stressful," Ellie replied, still trying to catch her breath. Octavian chuckled, unfazed by her response. "You'll find it easier the next time. The first ride is always the scariest," he reassured her. "We call them bogopods, our new advanced way to travel to the underworld, an improvement on the old way. They are environmentally friendly and run from bioenergy sources." Ellie couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm for the new mode of transport. It was clear Octavian felt proud of the innovation and excited to share it with her. She was grateful for his company and felt a sense of relief that she was not alone in this unfamiliar place. Her eyes widened at Octavian's unique attire. A green suit composed of tiny leaves and a matching velvet top hat. She couldn't help but admire his bold fashion sense, but her curiosity about her current whereabouts overshadowed her thoughts. Octavian, can you tell me where we are now? She asked, hoping for an answer. No time for that now, Miss Ellie. We mustn't be late for the Grand Council meeting. Bob doesn't take kindly to tardiness. Please follow me. Octavian answered with a sense of urgency in his voice as he began to move quickly. Ellie hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should follow, but the thought of being lost and alone in an unknown place outweighed her reservations. She hastened her steps to keep up with Octavian's wobbly and fast-paced gait, determined not to lose sight of him.